Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be starting a big batch of broth. I feel like that was almost a tongue twister there, but this is something I like to do quite often actually, and I always end up running into this problem around Thanksgiving. I am making my list of things I need from the store, and then I realize I am very low on chicken broth. I feel like this has happened to me for the last 3 years. Ever since I started to make and can my own broth, I don't think I've bought it once. I really love homemade broth. It is a game changer. And for me, this is almost a free product because I buy whole organic pasture raised chickens and then I save the bones and then I will make broth with them. But I figured I would share this with you today because I do need broth for some recipes for Thanksgiving, but you can save your turkey carcass and do this exact same thing. I will make sure I tag instructions below from the USDA, but you can do this with your turkey. And if you don't have a pressure canner, you can freeze this. So it's a very simple process. All I'm going to do is actually stick these bones in my stock pot, fill it with water, and I'm gonna let this simmer. And once it's done simmering, all I do is strain it and I let it cool overnight. So this is going to be a really quick and easy process today. There's really not too much to it, but I figured I'd walk you through the steps because this is a great way to get more out of your Thanksgiving turkey and get a free product out of your Thanksgiving turkey if you haven't thought of that. So let's go ahead and jump into this process. So I'm really lucky where I'm able to buy organic pasture raised chickens from a friend locally. Actually went over during their last butcher day this last time and learned how to butcher. I randomly mentioned this very quickly in a vlog sometime in September. I think I did it, I want to say it was whenever the first day of fall was, it was the day before that, and I went and I helped on butcher day just because it's something I've always wanted to learn. I don't know if it's something I will ever do. I would like to raise my own meat birds, but I'm obviously not buying the cheapest chicken. So I would like to get the most bang. All right, good morning. So I'm about to head downstairs, grab our broth. One reason for cooling it overnight is so then that way the fat will solidify on top and we can just scrape it off really easy. This is recommended for canning. I don't really know exact reasons, but one thing you can do is once you remove all of that fat off, you can render it down pretty much all day and then put it in your fridge and cook with it. There's been plenty of times where when I'm making chicken noodle soup, instead of using butter or a different oil to fry like my onions and celery and carrots in, I will just use like a tablespoon of that chicken fat to help bring in some of that flavor and also add in a little bit more fat to the soup. And it works really well that way. So we'll see how much fat I get. Typically, I only do this if I'm doing a bigger batch like I am. Sometimes you get a higher fat quantity than others, and sometimes it's just honestly not worth rendering it down. So we'll see how much I get today. I'm gonna go ahead and grab that. We'll get this fat off, and then all we do is really heat up the broth from there, and then we can it. Pretty quick process, but I do think I'm gonna have, I wanna say 2 to 3 rounds of probably canning today. So we're going to be doing this for probably like, I would think like 5 hours once we get everything cleaned up. We will see. It is cold today. So my camp stove is what I use when I do any type of pressure canning. This is another reason why I kind of wanted to knock this out because next week we're gonna be even colder. Right now, I think it's 31, 32. We got pretty low last night. We got a pretty decent freeze, it looks like. I have jars heating up, I have my broth heating up, I got all of my stuff ready for canning minus my pressure canner. So every pressure canner is different, but my All-American, I will put about 2 to 3 inches of water at the bottom before I put my jars in there. When you're water bath canning, you typically put the water over the jars a few inches, but when you're pressure canning, I've always found that it goes up about halfway on the jar or so. And if you're doing multiple rounds, make sure you are adjusting that water for any evaporation and things like that. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna probably do 3 inches of water at the base of this. I'll also put my rack at the bottom, and then I'm going to add a splash of vinegar to this. You guys will see I add splashes of vinegar every time I can, because if I don't, my jars will get really cloudy through the processing time because we have harder water. So with the water I put into my pressure canner, I'm gonna make sure it's as hot as possible. That way there's no shock in the jars after I take a hot jar with hot broth, and then you don't want to put it in cold water. It could shock that glass and break it. I'm gonna take my jar tongs and grab a hot jar. All right, I'm gonna get my funnel here, and I'm gonna fill the jar up to a 1-inch headspace. I'm gonna check for headspace here. Perfect. And then I'm gonna take a paper towel, dip it in some vinegar, and wipe the rim. This helps make sure that our rims are clean, especially of any like extra oil or anything that could have been potentially on the ring after filling the jar here. And then that way we should get a better seal. I'm just going to take my lid here, place it on, get a ring, and we're gonna do this fingertip tight, not too tight, not too loose. And then we are going to put this into the pressure canner and grab another jar. One of the things I absolutely love when it comes to canning day is my ladle. This was one of those things I didn't invest in for a while, and then I randomly asked for it for Christmas one year. This is an 8-ounce ladle, and it will hook onto the side of your pot. So if you're doing large tomato days or broth days like this, it is so handy because you can do less scoops. Your arm is up in the air a little less, and then you have a convenient way to set it, and you can still put the lid on with it as well. It will get a little hot, but it is so handy and it makes it so much easier. To get the lid on, there's this arrow here, and we line it up with this little notch. So I'm gonna open up my propane and turn this on. I have to pressure can at 15 pounds of pressure for my altitude. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna wait for this to start venting, and we let it vent for 10 minutes, and then I put the weighted gauge on. After that, we wait for it to go to the pounds of pressure we need, and then we start our processing time of 25 minutes. So really, even though our processing time is 25 minutes, this will probably take us close to 50 minutes to an hour to get everything up to pressure, the time it takes, and then back down to pressure. So I think I'm gonna sit out here actually, even though it's chilly. I have my temperature blanket and I need to catch up on that. So I might actually try to catch up on that. But I am going to just have this on a like medium low, and we'll keep an eye on everything. I am currently on October 4th. I have a lot of catching up to do. I also need to weave in the ends. Around this time last year, I did a big catch up like this as well because I really wanted to have it done by the second day of January, which I actually was able to accomplish. So I think I'll be able to get fully caught up sometime in the next week. I'm just slowly trying to work on it as I go. I figure this would actually be warm since it is cold. This thing's actually pretty thick. But if you don't know what a temperature blanket is, it's where you crochet one row for every day based on the temperature. Some people go off the average. I go off of the high temperature. And this is actually the second one I have done. I did one last year and I figured it'd be really cool to compare the years. So I decided to do a second one, and they look very similar, but yet different. And it's really cool just to correspond everything with the garden here. So that's been really cool to see the differences between the gardening year and how the blankets have looked. So we are starting to vent a little bit. I'm gonna let this fully vent for 10 minutes and then I will put on my weighted gauge and we will wait for it to get to 15 pounds of pressure. All right, so there is our vent. And it's been 10 minutes, so I'm going to put the weight on at 15 and we wait for this to get to 15. I got done with my row before this got to 15. We're pretty close though. October 5th was in the 90s and that sounds really nice right now. You can see my fingers are a little bit red. It's chilly. All right, we're at 15. I'm gonna start the timer for 25 minutes. It has been 25 minutes, so all I'm going to do is cut the heat and I'm gonna let this go back down to pressure naturally and then we take off the weight. Now that it's at 0, I'm gonna remove the weight. This is hot, so be careful. You can hear a little bit more air release, and now I'm gonna take it inside. When bringing this in, I'm being so careful to keep it level the whole time. This lid removed, and I'll let the jars sit inside the canner for about 5-10 minutes to adjust to the heat. When lifting off your lid, always remove away from you. One of the things I have found I love about crochet is the ability just to pick it up and stop when I need to, which makes it a really nice secondary hobby because I have other hobbies that take up so much time. And this time of year, I'm able to do a lot more crochet. And I can sit here and adjust this if I need to. It's actually getting really nice out now. Like, it's still chilly. I think we're still under 50 degrees, but the sun's shining. So I'm pretty happy about that. I really want to try to make an effort to be outside, especially on sunnier days, even if it is cold, because the sunlight really affects me. I really need my dose of sunlight every day. everything sealed. We have 19 and a half quarts here. I ended up stacking that second batch with this 1 pint here, and that worked out really great. I really want to try to double stack all of my quarts. I just wasn't sure if I could necessarily move it once it was completely full, because it's pretty heavy just with 7 quarts. That canner alone is heavy, then you add weight with water and canning jars. I just wasn't sure if I could do it safely. I think I could do it, but that pot is so hot after it gets done processing, and then I try to make it stay as level as possible, and I just didn't want it to be too heavy. So I did do 3 rounds yesterday. I think it took longer than 5 hours. I want to say it took probably closer to 6 or 7 once we got everything like fully done and cleaned up and all of that. But I'm happy that all of these closed up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rinse all of these jars off. So even if you were to buy the cheapest organic chicken broth at the store, you're looking at roughly $5 a piece. But this would actually probably be a little bit more since this is 100% pasture raised organic. I think that makes a big difference. Bone broth can be up to, I think, like up to 12 a quart. So you can really save some money making your own broth. So if you're doing a turkey next week, definitely consider doing your own turkey broth. You don't have to can it, you can just freeze it. I technically saved about $100+ yesterday, which always makes me happy. And the broth is so much better. I'm going to go get this stacked up in the basement. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me as I made chicken broth over the last few days. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.